Okay, today we're going to speak about love, relationships, and the dark side of psychology. Now, normally when I speak about relationships, we can refer this to different kinds of relationships. It's not only romantic relationships, but definitely it can be applied in romantic relationships, and we're going to speak about part of romantic relationships also. Today, we're going to speak about the manipulative side that comes in, and how manipulation can be used a lot of times in relationships. And I think a very big part of the focus is when you are not at a place where you are healthy, where you are not at a place where you are secure. And if a person is not healthy, if a person is not secure within themselves, they can very easily fall into the traps of dark personalities, manipulation, and such aspects. And there was one guy who wrote a lot about the theories and the acts of manipulation, and his name was Niccolo Machiavelli. And Niccolo Machiavelli said the following. He said, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves." So the fox and the lion, he says, must be on the inside of you. Why? Because a lot of manipulative personalities and dark personalities will manipulate you by using certain traps, and a lot of psychological traps. And they will be like wolves. Why do we say they will be like wolves? Because they want to devour, they want to hurt. So it's that kind of like that combination between manipulation and hurt. Even if this doesn't happen intentionally, remember, hurt people will hurt people. And people who are hurt to this point, to this psychological level, will draw people into their lives, because these people are there to make them feel good. But if they don't, they will hurt these people. And the thing is, you can never bring somebody into your life to make you happy. If you are not happy, if you are not secure, if you are not emotionally satisfied, bringing somebody into your life is not a good idea, because that person is not going to give those things to you. I remember Lewis House's fiance, Martha, she once said, "You don't get somebody into your life to make you happy. You can get somebody into your life to make you happier." So somebody can take what you already have and definitely add to it. But if you're at a place where you're not secure, where you're not happy with yourself, where you're not secure within yourself, where you're not emotionally satisfied, bringing somebody into your life will not help that. And a lot of people who manipulate, a lot of people who dominate, a lot of people who hurt are not healthy on the inside, and they bring people in their lives, and those people at the end of the day get hurt. That's why we have to look out for these traps, and we have to look out for these dangers, as Niccolo Machiavelli said. So the dark side of psychology. Okay, so to look at the dark side of psychology, we first have to understand what psychology is. So psychology is the scientific study of the human mind and human behavior. So you study the way people think, how the mind, how the brain works, and you study how people behave. Now, a lot of people who have dark personalities, and a lot of people, I will actually say most of them, if not all of them, are people who study people, are people who look at the way people think, who look at the way people behave, and they use that for manipulation. Now, not all people who study people to see how people think, to see how people behave, will manipulate, because to be interested in other people, to be interested in how other people think, to be interested in how other people behave, can be an extremely good thing and can be an extremely positive thing. Everything is about the intention behind it and how you would use it. Okay, so what is the dark side of psychology? And we're going to get to what is a healthy relationship, how to desire, how to build towards, and how to find a healthy relationship. We're just going to look at the dark side first. So there was what they called in psychology the dark triad, which later became the dark tetrad, 3 personalities which later became 4. And the first 3 of the dark triad was, first of all, a Machiavellianism, which came from Niccolo Machiavelli, or was named after Niccolo Machiavelli. And Machiavellianism is master manipulators, and these people can be extremely charming, and they can be extremely charismatic. Now, being charming and being charismatic is not the problem. Being charming and being charismatic is great. But being charming and being charismatic for the reason to, or with the intent to manipulate people, that's the problem, and that's what people with dark personalities will do. And then narcissism, everything is about me. I want to be the center of attention. Grandiosity also has manipulation in it. But, one misconception about narcissism is people think narcissists are people who really love themselves. They love themselves a lot, which is not true. Narcissists actually have a very big lack of self-love, and they're extremely insecure. All of these things narcissists do to be the center of attention, to want admiration, to get angry when they don't get approval. All of these things are basically masks, external things that they use to cover up their insecurity. So they're not insecure. They are not secure people. And then psychopathy are people, psychopaths are people who are very impulsive. They will hurt people with their impulsivity, and they have a lack of empathy, meaning they don't really feel much for it. And then sadists are people who take pleasure in the hurt of other people. But an interesting thing about sadists is they have an empathy, meaning they will find pleasure in the hurt of other people, or they will find pleasure in hurting other people. But afterwards, they will have empathy, and they will feel sorry for these people. So the dark tetrad, when I speak about dark psychology and dark personalities, it's not just, people who are diagnosed with this, but it's also people who might not be diagnosed, who might not be a Machiavellian or a narcissist, but they show those traits a lot. Now, when we speak about something like narcissism, every single one of us has a little bit of it in us. But because every single one of us has a little bit of hurt in us, it's impossible to say, I have no narcissism within me whatsoever. But it's about people who are narcissists or Machiavellians or psychopaths. Things go to a certain extent. So you cannot, for instance, say every single person who's impulsive is a psychopath, because all of us do impulsive things every now and then that we are not proud of. But these things go to a certain extent, and we should see and understand these characteristics, and also that we should know that these characteristics comes from insecurity, hurt, and definitely a lack of self-love. Okay. So now we're quickly going to look at emotional addiction and true love. Or let's rather ask the question, is this emotional addiction or is this true love? Because a lot of times people have an emotional addiction towards somebody and they will call it love. Because here's the thing, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Now that doesn't mean a Machiavellian or a manipulative person will attract another manipulative person. It does mean that an insecure person will attract an insecure person. So this means one person is insecure, but out of their insecurity grew codependency. And another person is insecure, but out of their insecurity grew narcissism, for instance. Now, two insecure people are attracted to each other, although this one's insecurity came out as codependency and this one's insecurity came out as narcissism. So codependency or a codependent is somebody, I normally call it the savior complex. They want to save another person because they feel good about themselves when they can save another person. Sorry. So this is why people who are codependent, this is why they will get attracted to narcissists. Because for the narcissist, everything is about me. For the codependent, everything is about you. So people who tend to be attracted to people who are manipulators, to people who hurt, to people who play games with them, these people also have insecurities and emotional hurts. So an emotional addiction is when you fall in love with somebody because of emotional wounds. You have an emotional wound, they have an emotional wound, and you fall in love with each other because of that. And this normally comes from familiarity. Let me use an example. If you grew up in an environment where you didn't get a lot of attention and you had to fight for attention, not fight like in a physical sense, but you had to do things to get attention, and you had to do things to feel seen, you will tend to choose a partner where you have to fight for attention and fight to feel seen. And Maybe even as a child, a person had to manipulate to get attention, and that's why they become manipulators. Maybe somebody didn't get attention as a child, that's why they become a narcissist, because now they want all the attention. Maybe somebody had to prove themselves to their family the whole time, and now they're in a relationship where they have to prove themselves the whole time. And if they don't do these things, it feels unfamiliar. And if something feels unfamiliar, you're not attracted to it. So now by that, I'm not saying that you're going to be totally healthy and the person you are marrying is going to be totally healthy, because all of us have wounds. That's not the issue. The issue, I'm not saying don't have wounds. I'm not saying, be with somebody who's not wounded whatsoever. But what I am saying is somebody that's secure. It doesn't mean that person has no wounds, but the person is aware of the wounds that they have. Number one, that's self-awareness. And then they are willing to work on it. So if you find somebody where everything is your fault, everything is their fault, they think they are perfect, they don't want to acknowledge their wounds, that's a big red flag. But if you find somebody that says, I acknowledge my wounds, I do acknowledge I have to grow through things. And even if the two of you can come together and help each other heal in a healthy way. So an unhealthy way, it's my responsibility to heal you, your responsibility to heal me. That's unhealthy. But healthy is when we are in a relationship, in the relationship, some things comes up to show where I'm not healed and where I'm still wounded. But I go and I work on myself. That doesn't, by going and working on myself doesn't mean I break up the relationship or I break up with the person. It does mean that in the relationship, it's not your responsibility to heal me, but in the relationship, things are getting exposed. And the things that are getting exposed, I know I need to work on. So people who are not emotionally healthy will find people who are stable boring. So they will go in a relationship with a stable guy or a stable girl, emotionally healthy guy, emotionally healthy girl, and they will say, this relationship is boring. It doesn't excite me. But remember, a healthy relationship is only boring if you're not healthy. If two healthy people get together, it's not boring. It feels great to them. So why do emotional people find a healthy relationship boring? Because emotional unhealthy people is addicted to emotional highs and lows. I want to read to you something. This is from a book of Robert Greene, The Art of Seduction. And I learned so much from Robert Greene's books, and he speaks about, some of the things in his books are things that you have to look out for, definitely. But other things are things that you can apply. That's very good. And we're going to speak about one of these things right now that I've read. And personally, for me, this is like a very unhealthy thing. And luckily, because I read this book, I can now see when somebody wants to do this to me. So he speaks about the coquette. It's one of the seductive techniques, and he speaks about the coquette. The coquette is, he writes here, it's the ability to delay satisfaction, and it's the ultimate art of seduction. While waiting, the victim is held in thrall. Coquettes are the grand masters of this game, orchestrating a back and forth movement between hope and frustration. They bait with the promise of reward, the hope of physical pleasure, happiness, fame by association, and power, all of which, however, proves elusive. Yet this only makes their targets pursue them more. Coquettes seem totally self-sufficient. They do not need you, they seem to say, and their narcissism proves devilish attractive. You want to conquer them, but they hold the cards. The strategy of the coquette is never to offer total satisfaction. Imitate the alternating heat and coolness of the coquette, and you will keep the seduced at your heels. So basically what he's speaking here about is the hot and cold game. Always have to make somebody wonder. And somebody sent me a video once, not by Robert Greene. Like I said, I do love Robert Greene's books, and there's a lot of things that I learn, meaning a lot of things that you have to look out for this. But there's a lot of things that he teaches that I'm like, this is actually something great to do. But somebody sent me this video, and he spoke about, he spoke about the psychology of ignoring a woman, and if you're good to the woman and one day and then you ignore her and then you treat her badly and then you're nice to her again, she's gonna fall in love with you. And I was like, I look at that, I'm like, yes, I really don't want a woman like this. I don't want a relationship where I have to do things like that to get somebody's attention. And I asked a female friend of mine. She's actually married to a friend of mine, and she's a very secure person. So I asked her, what do you think about this? She was like, if somebody ever does that to me, I will run away. And she also said, insecure people will go for somebody like that. And I realized, that's it. It works with so many people because there are many insecure people out there. But this hot and cold game will never work with somebody that's secure. So this is one thing I learned, for instance, in the book that I needed to look out for. But seduction in itself is not a bad thing. Let me just make that clear. I'm not advocating boring in a relationship, and I think in a marriage with a husband and a wife, to seduce each other in a healthy way is still very important if done correctly. I watched a video recently of somebody speaking about, some of the main mistakes men do in relationships. And they spoke about, there was a girl, she spoke about all of these things that, men do in the beginning of a relationship to get the girl, let's say, for instance, to marry him. And they do all of these charming, nice, seductive things. And as soon as she marries him, then he kind of stops doing that. And then he becomes, like they say, somebody else. But something very interesting she said is this man doesn't become somebody else. He actually becomes himself. What he did to win the woman's heart wasn't himself. All this charming stuff wasn't himself. And now when they are married, now he's not doing it anymore. So it's therefore important that, when you are married, to keep on doing the charming stuff, to keep on doing the, all this charismatic and fun stuff, but it must come out of who you are. It's something that shouldn't stop happening. And that's why I'm saying, and this is just for something extra, this is why I'm saying seduction in itself is not a bad thing if used and done correctly. But in so many cases today, and I think in most cases today, it's done in a very, very unhealthy way. So an emotional addiction is somebody that's addicted to extreme highs and lows, and they feel boring in a relationship where there's not to feel highs and lows. Now, this doesn't mean force yourself to love a healthy person even if it feels boring, because you cannot do that. You cannot force yourself to have feelings for somebody. You cannot force yourself to be attracted to somebody. But what I am saying that's very important is to heal yourself. So when you heal yourself, you'll get to a place where you will find healthy attractive, and you won't find healthy boring. Okay, so I'm going to end with this. 6 standards that you should look for in a healthy relationship. Number 1 is respect. Somebody that respects your time, that considers you, and that's very kind to you. So that is what respect is. I respect your time, meaning I'm not always late. You don't always have to change your schedule for me. I consider you. I'm kind to you. It's that form of healthy respect. And the second one is somebody who values you. Now, I use this example a lot when it comes to value, also when it comes to honoring a person. So imagine you have 10 glasses, and one of them is crystal. You're not gonna use the crystal glass the way you use the other glasses, because the crystal glass is more valuable. You're gonna treat it differently. So that's what value in a relationship is. There's a lot of people out there, but you are crystal. You are more important. I value you more. So I'm going to treat you differently. So you look for somebody who values you. And then vulnerability and communication. I just want to say this, that there's not a misunderstanding. When I spoke about respect and time, somebody that respects your time, I'm not speaking about somebody that's a few minutes late and they actually phoned you and they said, listen, I'm a few minutes late. I'm speaking to somebody who tells you I'm going to pick you up at 6, 7:30, they're not there yet. You have to phone them and they say, sorry, I got busy with something else. That's an example I'm speaking of. I'm not speaking of somebody that's a few minutes late and they phone you and they say, sorry, I'm on my way. So number 3, vulnerability and communication. So people who are in the dark tetrad, the manipulators, the narcissists, people like that, they hide their vulnerability behind insecurity. So this is one thing I learned from this book from Robert Greene. That was something I will definitely use in my life. That's really amazing. He said vulnerability is very attractive and vulnerability is very seductive, but insecurity is very anti-seductive. So he spoke about what vulnerability is, and the Latin word for vulnerability is the word vulnerabilitas, and it comes from the word vulnerare, which means to be wounded or to be injured. To be wounded or to be injured. This is why I'm saying when you look for a partner, look for somebody that's willing to admit their wounds. That's vulnerability. And vulnerability, according to Greene, is a very, very attractive thing. But insecurity is a very anti-seductive thing, or a very unattractive thing. So what is insecurity? Insecurity is I use all these things to cover up my wounds. And I use all these external things, even a mask, to cover up my wounds, because I don't want you to look into me. Where vulnerability is I'm open about my wounds, but I'm not insecure about it. So vulnerability and communication is a very important thing. Somebody that hides their vulnerability to you the whole time. And I'm not saying, go spread your wounds to everybody out there, but to close people, close connections, it's a very important thing. The fourth one is empathy. Empathy doesn't mean feel sorry for the person. Empathy means feel like that person feels. And I remember I watched the series once where the girl got this huge prize in the scientific world, and the guy who was a bit narcissistic couldn't celebrate her. He was kind of angry because he was jealous and because he wasn't celebrated. So empathy is putting yourself in another person's shoes, putting yourself in another person's skin almost. When they are happy about something, you're not just happy for them, you are happy as them. That's real empathy. When somebody goes through something difficult, through something emotional, you don't feel for them, you feel as them. So somebody who has empathy has intense emotional support. So you look for somebody who has empathy and somebody who has intense emotional support for you. And then number 5, also very important, taking responsibility for your own wounds and not blaming the whole time. Somebody who takes responsibility for their own wounds is somebody that's willing to go work on themselves, and somebody that makes sure they are as healthy as they can be, and they bring their healthy self to the relationship. And number 6, before I get to number 6, I want to ask you to like and to subscribe to this video. We're trusting for 1,000 subscribers, and your subscription can help us. And also to share this video, because we do believe this video is going to help many other people. And also I have a course on relational intelligence. Also, this is not just in romantic relationships, all areas of relationships. You can use this in business, work, families, friendships, romantic relationships. These are great keys. So if you want to know more about this course, you can contact me. The email address will be on the screen. And then also I have this course on healing childhood trauma. These are people who says, listen, I really want to work on my wounds. So if you want to do this course with me, Healing Childhood Trauma, we do it online. You can also contact me. And number 6, the final one, core values. Look for somebody who has the same core values as you are. And I think that the important thing here is to be open about your core values. Don't just listen to what that person's core values are and just take them as your own because you want to impress this person or you don't want to upset or lose this person. But go ask yourself the question, what are my core values truly? What are my core values really? And then find somebody who shares those values. I'm not saying all of the values should be exactly the same, but the core values should. The core values are the important values. That's part of your core. And those are values that are really important, and those are values that should be shared. Now, something with the dark personalities and manipulative personalities, they will easily manipulate you away from your core values to what they believe is right, and be very careful for that. Now, I hope this helped you, and I believe this information is going to encourage you to make the right decision, and also going to encourage you to work on your own emotional health and to become the secure person that you are. Thank you so much for watching. We're excited to see you soon again. We love you, and goodbye.